Hello and welcome to another Lamb Bible Study. My name is James and this is another Lamb Bible Study. I'll continue to be your host and Bible reader of Lamb Bible Study. And Lamb Bible Studies are every Tuesdays and Thursdays on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining me again. And as always, my mind has been filled with thoughts of all kinds of different things today. And I'm excited always. I can't wait for the Lamp Bible Study. It's today. I feel like it's extra special. I feel like it's like one of those party horns. Boo 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 boo. you know? I'm like, all right, let's get started. Yes, so I pray that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom through His holy word. So let's get started today. We are currently in Genesis. We're in Genesis chapter 36. I'm currently reading from an NIV Collegiate Bible. And so let's get right into the word today. Esau's descendants. This is the account of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the women of Canaan, Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, and granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite, also Basemath, daughter of Ishmael, and sister of Neboeth. Now, this is the Old Testament, and these are ancient names. So if you do know how to correctly pronounce them, please do so while reading along. If you have correct pronunciation, leave those in the comments section. Thank you very much. Let's continue to read. Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau. Basemath bore Reuel and Oholibamah bore Joash, Jalem, and Korah. Important names. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in Canaan. Esau took his wives and sons and daughters and all the members of his household, as well as his livestock and all his other animals and all the goods he had acquired in Canaan, and moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. Their possessions were too great for them to remain together. The land where they were staying could not support them both because of their livestock. So Esau, that is Edom, settled in the hill country of Seir. That's going to be important, especially for those that go actually to the Exodus Bible studies. But after Genesis, we're going to hop over to Joshua. So let's continue to read. This is the account of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in the hill country of Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Esau's wife, Ada, and Reuel, the son of Esau's wife, Basemath. The sons of Eliphaz, Teman, Omar, Zepho, Getam, and Kenaz. Esau's son Eliphaz also had a concubine named Timnah, who bore him Amalek. Very important, that name, Amalek. Remember that. Take note. These were grandsons of Esau's wife Ada. The sons of Reuel, Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were grandsons of Esau's wife Basemath. The sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, and granddaughter of Zibeon, whom she bore to Esau: Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These were the chiefs among Esau's descendants. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, chiefs: Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Getam, and Amalek. These were the chiefs' descendants from Eliphaz and Edom. They were grandsons of Ada. And the sons of Esau's son Reuel, chiefs: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the chiefs' descendants from Reuel and Edom. They were grandsons of Esau's wife Basemath. The sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah, chiefs: Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These were the chiefs' descendants from Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau, that is Edom, and these were their chiefs. So right now we're going over Esau's information because previously we were going over Jacob and Isaac as well. And so now we're going over Isaac's sibling, who is Esau. And how, because we didn't get any of that information, we've been with Isaac this whole, for quite a few chapters here. Jacob, and for quite a few chapters here. And we didn't get to learn about Jacob's brother Esau. So I have to correct myself because sometimes I get these names mixed up. There's a lot of important people. So, but let's continue to read. And these were the sons of Esau, that is Edom, and these were their chiefs. These were the sons of Seir, the Horite, who were living in the region: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishon. These sons of Seir in Edom were Horite chiefs. The sons of Lotan, Hori, and Homam. Timnah was Lotan's sister. The sons of Shobal, Alvin, Menahath, Ebal, Shepo, and Onam. The sons of Zibeon, Ai, and Anah. This is the Anah who discovered the hot springs in the desert while he was grazing the donkeys of his father Zibeon. The children of Anah, Dishon, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. The sons of Dishon, Hemdan, Ishban, Ithran, and Kiran. The sons of Ezer, Bilhan, Zavan, and Akan. The sons of Dishon, Uz, and Aaron. These were the Horite chiefs: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the Horite chiefs according to their divisions in the land of Seir. So, again, the reason why we're getting these names is because, again, back then they didn't have where you just could take a swab of the mouth, put it in the post office box, and send it to a lab, So this was all done written and by word of mouth. And, a lot of us still do that today, with ancestries and such. We still, there's a lot of people who still keep records of who their grandfather is, great-grandfather, grandmother, great-grandmother, and so on and so forth. And so we see that, though, here because it's important to know where these people came from, where we came from, as a people, because eventually all these people spread out. And so, but this is before, quite a bit of things, but we're seeing just how populations increased and how there were clans and families started. So over all of these names, and the reason why we're now learning about Esau and his family, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The rulers of Edom. These were the kings who reigned in Edom before any Israelite king reigned. Bela, son of Beor, became king of Edom. His city was named Dinhabah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrah, succeeded him as king. When Jobab died, Husham from the land of the Temanites succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated Midian in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. His city was named Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah from Masrekah succeeded him as king. When Salma died, Shaul from Rehoboth on the river succeeded him as king. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, son of Akbor, succeeded him as king. When Baal Hanan, son of Akbar, died, Hadad succeeded him as king. His city was named Pale, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab. Now, I do know that when somebody is named Baal, Baal, that typically, I'm not quite sure exactly because, again, not a Bible scholar. I'd have to do some more research if that is the case. If this was because of this around the start of idol worshiping, but that's typically when you see Baal or Baal, and people are named, that's typically the reason in the Bible. So, again, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read about these names and the reasoning for these names, the rulers of Edom, where Edom is coming from and how it was created and why? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? I know Edom plays a role in many places, and Edom's talked about over and over again in the Bible. So let's find out why and continue reading in God's wisdom. These were the chiefs descended from Esau by name according to their clans and regions: Timnah, Alva, Jethath, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinon, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Megdil, and Aram. These were the chiefs of Edom, according to their settlements in the land they occupied. This was Esau, the father of the Edomites. So now we know Esau was the father of the Edomites. And so we will find out just how the Edomites treated other people, including Israel, eventually. It's going to be very interesting. Remember, Esau had an issue with his brother. And we're going to see if it plays out in his descendants. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind knowing about that? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joseph's dreams. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, in the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So I've tapped on this before in other Bible studies. You know, when you have families, the larger they are, the more you tend to have a potential for favoritism. And whatever part you're in. So, for instance, if you're the mother, eventually the rest of the family, your sons and daughters, or just sons, or vice versa, or and your husband, they start to see that you have a favorite child because of the way that particular child is treated and talked to. Same when it comes to fathers. Exactly the same, because of how you react, how you treat, and how you talk to. And you also see that within siblings. Siblings can tell that, can see that. And so that tends to rile up emotions. It tends to rile up actions different things being taken. And so being not the favorite tends to make you jaded towards your sibling. And if you were the favorite, it puts you in that situation that anything that you may do, whether good or bad, is going to be rewarded in a way. So, or not punished the same. So there's quite a bit to when you have favorites in a family. And it plays out. And it plays out in different ways. And we're going to review just how one way it's going to play out when it comes to Joseph in particular. Also, we're going to understand why Joseph is important, why it's bringing up Joseph and what Joseph is going to be led to and how he's going to be utilized. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind about just these few passages right here about how Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons? Have you ever had to deal with favoritism in your family? Were you the favorite? Do you know who the favorite was? If you're a parent, do you treat a child as your favorite? Do you say that they're your favorite? I actually hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. Is it something that's okay to say? Might want to think about these things, especially playing favoritism or having a favorite. Go to God about it. Is it something that is okay? Let me just say one thing. We're supposed to love God and then love our neighbor as ourselves, meaning love everybody else as ourselves. How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. So, just in these few verses, you can take it as, was Joseph being arrogant? Was Joseph being cocky? Or was he literally just telling them his dream? You know, when you have a conversation and you bring something up that's fascinating. And so these are things to think about. Think about if Joseph's character is even drawn, or do people draw conclusions about Joseph by his actions? Could he be acting arrogant and cocky because he's having this dream and he wants to tell his brothers on purpose? Or is it, again, something that could be innocent, as in he's just explaining the type of dream that he had because it was so interesting, it was so fascinating, and he wanted other people's to know. And that can happen too. You know, when something happens to you, or even have you had a dream where you just had to tell somebody, like you woke up and you may have been going through your day and you just told somebody, "Hey, I had this dream that da 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 da." Lots to think about. So let's continue to read. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him. and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So remember, Joseph was his favorite. So he's hearing this and he's taking from the words of Joseph's dream that the representation of the sun and the moon being the father and his wife, or the father and the mother, eventually bowing down to their son, Joseph. And so his reaction is, kept the matter in mind. So again, was it Joseph being cocky or being arrogant, being prideful or proud? Or was he just innocently telling these people? And then notice the reaction. Had he not been the favorite, would there have been a different reaction from Joseph? I mean, not Joseph, but his father, Israel. Would there have been a different reaction? Would there be temper? Would there be anger? Would there be punishment? Think about these things. Think about these things even in modern times. If you're a parent, think about your reaction to your supposed favorite. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joseph sold by his brothers. Well, there you go, right there. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come, now let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." Just think of how much emotion has been brought up. How some of the brothers felt towards Joseph already, that they wanted to kill him. And this isn't the first time a sibling killed a sibling. Look at Cain and Abel. It shows you just how riled up humans can get, especially within sin. How the devil can help manipulate ideas and thoughts towards sin and trying to get you to fulfill those too. It can also show you the effect it has when you do play favorites in a family. You may not think of anything of it. Let's say you're the parent or you're a sibling and you're noticing that favoritism is going on. Your silence or your just allowing things to happen like that could potentially lead to some devastating results. So in this case, some of his siblings already wanted to get rid of Joseph. Not only that, but it was kind of like one of those jump off a bridge and cut your throat at the same time. They wanted to kill him and throw him in the cistern so that animals would just tear him apart. It's very sad. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think? Have you been on the receiving end? Have you been the favorite? Have you been blinded to potential fake reactions from your siblings? Maybe you heard they were talking behind your back, plotting things against you. Be a good time to take what that situation is to the Lord and see how what he says, what comes of it. Let's continue to read. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. Let's not take his life, he said. Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So at least one of them was thinking clearly. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. This is Judah now. Judah is willing to sell his brother off. Take note, and let's see just how his brothers continue to act throughout this story of Joseph. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. Another side note, the Lord works in mysterious ways. Sometimes things in life can go bad. And I've talked about this before in another Bible study. And those bad things are bad. They can be utilized to strengthen you, though. It's not saying that bad things are good, because they are bad. They remain bad. It allows you to learn and grow if that lesson is needed. If that lesson is needed for your walk with the Lord. People can be tested in many ways. They can be tested with riches, poorness, or having hostile lives. And it's what do they do? Who do you turn to? Who do I turn to? What is our first thought? If our first thought is a self-reaction, then we need to correct that. Because the correct first thought and the correct first reaction is seeking the Lord. And time again throughout the Bible, it'll show over and over again humanistic reactions, especially those when we don't seek the Lord first. And many times they eventually seek the Lord. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read about this? Joseph was literally just sold into slavery, basically, to be taken to Egypt. And all of this is important because the Lord can work with even those who create a terrible situation. He can create a better situation out of something that was started evil to begin with. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels. I'm repeating some of this of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" So Reuben, I believe Reuben's the oldest, and he was upset. Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their father and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." So one lie is leading to another lie, and another lie, and another lie. That tends to happen in these type of things. Have you experienced that? Have you done that? Have I done that? Where one lie has to be followed up by another lie, and another lie. Think about those things. Those are things to think about. Let's continue to read. He recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son." So his father wept for him. So it completely devastated his father because that was his favorite child, and moved the family to a position where it was harder to have a relationship with their father. So one sin, which developed into a lie after lie, created complete chaos and havoc and detriment for no reason other than jealousy, ignorance. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How can you relate? What kind of things happen? Even things that you don't think are similar, but they are. At a job, you get an award, somebody else doesn't. You're now the target. Shark eat shark. You've heard the term dog eat dog. It's that jealousy too. Are you the manager's favorite? Are you a manager that has a particular employee that you like more than the others? Scientifically saying that's there's a good chance that that's happening in your life. So there's so many ways that you can take this. You can take it as in your immediate family. You can take it as in your life, in your work life, in your life in general. And now we see that Jacob was devastated. He didn't want to be comforted by any of his family. He wanted to mourn, and then he also said, "I will go down to the grave." He was done. He was done with life. How do you think that made his children feel that were still there? How do you think that made his wife feel? How do you think with that type of reaction, like he felt like he basically no longer needed to live. He didn't have anything to live for. Is that justified? That type of reaction? There's quite a bit here. And may take you time to go through this and, time to meditate on the Holy Word and pray about it. Think about it. And that's a good thing. Giving it to the Lord. Let's continue to read. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Over everything that we just read, with Joseph being sold and how Israel reacted, and even Reuben reacted. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Judah and Tamar. At that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her and lay with her. She became pregnant, gave birth to a son, who was named She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Now, all of these names are important here, very important, because these are in lineage. Judah is very important because he's direct lineage to the Messiah, to Christ. I know I just gave you the answer. So take note of these names. Take note. They're very important. And you're like, wow, but wasn't Judah part of the plotters that were plotting against his brother Joseph? Yeah. Something to think about. So let's see how things go. And Judah got a wife from his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, lie with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her as a brother-in-law to produce offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so whenever he lay with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep from producing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. Again, this is the time before the law was written, but this was basically under the law. And as well as something that if one of the brothers was married and he didn't bore children, then the next brother after he died would be obligated to marry the same woman and try to bear children. So that's during the Old Testament, during prior to the law being handed to Moses, but this is basically under the law. And so that's why these sons of his are dying off, because they're not doing what they were obligated to do. Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he thought, he may die too, just like his brothers. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. When Judah had recovered from his grief, he went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went with him. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that though Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. Taking off the widow's clothes and putting on a veil during that time frame was similar, could be said, a similar way of going into prostitution during that time frame, historically speaking. So that just gives you a little bit of background or a little bit of understanding. Again, definitely always pray about it. Think about it, meditate on it, pray for wisdom. Let's continue to read. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter in law, he went over to her by the roadside and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." "And what will you give me to sleep with you?" she asked. "I'll send you a young goat from my flock," he said. "Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it?" she asked. He said, "What pledge should I give you?" "Your seal and its cord, and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Says a lot. Meanwhile, Judah sent the young goat by his friend to Adullamite in order to get his pledge back from the woman, but he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there, "Where is the shrine prostitute who was beside the road at Enam?" Where is the shrine prostitute? "There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here," they said. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who lived there said, 'There hasn't been any shrine prostitute here.'" This is giving me some thoughts about places I've been. One in particular, place that I've been. And it just, let's continue to read. Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughing stock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter in law, Tamar, is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant." Because remember, she was supposed to be a widower, and she hadn't been given to his youngest son, so she wasn't supposed to be going around sleeping with anybody. So now she's been found out. Let's see what happens. Judah said, "Bring her out and have her burned to death." Dang. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said. And she added, "See if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are." Dang. Another drama series coming this fall. So, nothing new under the sun. It's all here. When the time came for her to give birth, I'm sorry, let me go back past it. Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah." And he did not sleep with her again. So Judah recognized who those items belong to. Oh, they belong to you. They belong to him, Wow. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out his hand. So the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she said, "So this is how you have broken out." And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had the scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was given the name Zerah. Both important. So now that we know what happened to Tamar and that what she did, was it to get back at Judah? Was there some other thing? Maybe she really wanted a child. Or was it something that maybe, he's well off, so I want to be well off? Or is there some other motive? Did what Judah did, was that okay for him to look for a woman to lay with, a prostitute? Remember, this is the time where you go and you could have relations with your wife. And so this was not his wife, this was just a woman, and he didn't recognize her. Says a lot. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? So if man is supposed to have one woman and that woman be his wife to lay with, was Judah's actions okay? And this is more description of how Judah's character is. So Judah was one of the ones that wanted to originally plot kill his own brother. Then he decided no, it wasn't good to kill him, so let's sell him. So he sold his brother to be rid of him. Now he's laying with a prostitute who was acting, how do I say this? Who was technically his daughter-in-law. And we don't know exactly what her reasoning for doing what she did, acting as such, putting a veil on as of a prostitute. Says a lot. Modern day, you got to take it from the past all the way back. I mean, you see this a lot in dramas now. And have you heard about things similar to this? I mean, I can say, yeah, unfortunately. What kind of thoughts and feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Uh-oh. Another movie preview. Rating it to be determined. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So it shows you how Joseph was steadfast in his faith and how you can be strengthened by faith, even under these different types of pressures. One day, let's continue to read. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Uh-oh. Was he clothesless? Whoops. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. Oh boy, she's lying, this lying. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. So he was not too happy with Joseph, to the point where he put them possibly in a special type of prison, like for people who are just really bad, on that list, on the king, where the king's prisoners were confined. Let's continue to read. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. More to it. Joseph was in a loving family, originally with, being the favorite of the family. Now he's sold. Now he's in Egypt. Now he was working for Potiphar for a while in Egypt, and he's growing up. Now Potiphar's wife has hit on him, and Joseph refused by keeping strong in the faith, and Joseph was humanly punished for it. However, the Lord was with him. The Lord was protecting him. So yes, he went to prison, but he wasn't going to prison to die. He wasn't going to prison to be harmed. In fact, he won favor of the warden, and the warden put him over everything. It says a lot. It also says about Joseph. So if he was, when he was young, being the favorite, getting special things, it can show us that he's now having to be humble. So if Joseph had that character of cockiness and boldness and not boldness, but cockiness and arrogance, now he's having to humble himself and learn a different way. So it goes to show, and he kept God in the forefront. He knew God was with him, and he made sure to keep the faith. And that's what we need. That's what you need. That's what I need. That's what we need. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind about the unfortunate story of Joseph so far? How he went from one bad to the next. How even though things were looking from bad to worse, how the Lord was protecting him. How the Lord was with him. And we can look at that for ourselves today. How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The cupbearer and the baker. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God?" Amen. That is correct. Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what the dream means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." So Joseph was taking a moment. He was taking a moment to possibly have himself freed, or at least looked upon in a better light. But overall freed. Let's continue to read. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "This is what it means," Joseph said. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat away your flesh." Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. So that's upsetting. Joseph went, told them what their dreams were, and then what happened was exactly what he told him, but then the cupbearer forgot about Joseph. We'll see if that rings true the next time. Let's do a quick review. We started off with Esau's descendants and how important it was to know who they were, the Edomites and the rulers of Edom. We also started a truth story about Joseph and how he was Israel's favorite son. We talked about favoritism and how that can affect the family, and we see how that can affect the family because Joseph's brothers wanted to kill him. His oldest brother didn't necessarily want to kill him. A few of them just wanted him to be put somewhere. So they end up selling him. And without the oldest. So when Reuben returned, he was upset. And then they had to lie to their father. And their father was completely devastated. Probably not something that they were thinking was going to be a reaction. They knew he was probably going to be upset, but it was a complete devastation. A complete shutdown. Having to live with that and that reaction. And then Judah had, he got married, had children, and unfortunately, that his story isn't going well either. To the point where he ended up sleeping with his daughter-in-law, widowed daughter-in-law, because his sons kept passing away. And then she outwitted him, and he even recognized that. Instead, that she is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her to my son Shelah. He didn't follow through with what he was supposed to be doing. We also then went back to Joseph and how he was doing in Egypt, and how he was sold to Potiphar, and how he was doing very well with Potiphar. But then his wife came into play, and his wife tried to sleep with Joseph, and Joseph rejected her. So she had to create a lie to Potiphar, and that made Potiphar very angry, and he sent Joseph to prison. So Joseph went from a bad situation to a worse situation. However, the Lord was with him, and he was being protected. So Joseph got to the prison. He did very well. He was trusted, and so he was put over prison duties. And so much so that when the cupbearer and the baker were thrown into prison, they had dreams, and they ended up telling them to Joseph, and Joseph interpreted those dreams accurately, and those came to pass. And so the Lord can use whoever he wants. He can use, he can create situations from bad and make them good. And the thought here is to continually to rely on the Lord, even through those bad times. And there's nothing new under the sun. Like we said before, as you can see, all kinds of drama happened during this Bible study. What kind of thoughts or feelings came to your mind over everything that we've read? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? What kind of thoughts or feelings can you think of in modern day or similar situations? And what are the correct thought processes and correct reactions, first reactions, and correct first thoughts that we should have, that you need to have, that I need to have, we all should have? I want to thank you again for joining me on another Lamp Bible study. I hope and pray that you receive something from this. These Lamp Bible studies come out every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I pray that we continue to seek God's wisdom together. Please continue to pray for me, and I always will continue to pray for you. And as always, thank you very much for joining this Lamp Bible study. There will be highlights as well as more flashlights. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section on the YouTube page or on the Instagram page. If you want to do a Lamp Bible study, there's a contact email in the YouTube page as well as contact in the Instagram page. For wherever you are, have a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, and a blessed night. God bless.